Welcome back to another great session at the Centre Court MBA Festival. I'm Matt Symonds. I'm the co-host of the festival with the editor-in-chief of Poets and Quants, John Byrne. And our goal with this festival over the last 8 years has really been to capture the voices of admissions, of careers, senior leaders, and of course, alumni, because the enduring value of the MBA isn't going away anytime soon. And I think the festival is always an extraordinary showcase. John, you're a big believer in business education.
Totally. I consider it a no-brainer. Higher education transformed my life, and I didn't even have the benefit of a business degree, which is one of my real regrets. So, in this session, we're going to demystify the MBA admissions process. It's almost at all schools a very highly selective admissions process, and you do have to impress admission officials. We're going to tell you how and how, in fact, you can determine fit. We have four great schools, four great panelists. Matt, why don't you introduce our folks?
Yeah, and I was almost going to introduce you. You could be the candidate in front of four senior admissions. We'll see what they make of you. But it's lovely to welcome Jen Huda. Jen is Director of Recruitment at the Carey School at Johns Hopkins. She's joined by Lisa Wang. Lisa is a Senior Assistant Director of the full-time MBA at the Ross School at U of M. From Scheller and Georgia Tech, we have Emily Sharkey, Executive Director of the Graduate Business Admissions, MBA included. And from Barcelona, Patrick Wallen, the MBA Admissions Director at the IESE Business School. Great to have all four of you. And I think, John, we were going to start with you and just that sense of alignment with the school, its personality and culture.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about fit, and it's a word that's kind of vague and hard to get specific about. But I wonder, how do business schools define fit in this day and age? And how can applicants authentically demonstrate fit? Why don't we start with, Lisa at Michigan Ross?
Sure. So what we're really looking for is that the applicant is genuine in connecting with our community's approach to learning, the collaboration that we have here at Ross, as well as our commitment to positive impact. And so it's less about, saying the right buzzwords and more so about demonstrating that self-awareness and doing the actual research into our programming and articulating why exactly it is our environment here at Ross is going to bring out their best and how are they going to contribute to it in return. And so I think it's going to tie into their own career goals, whatever growth areas that they hope to work on, as well as the type of learning community that they can really thrive in. So for us, we're known for our action-based learning. And if an applicant is not really into that type of learning environment, then maybe this is not the right program for them. So really just doing that research and understanding what they can gain from our program, I think is how we can really define fit here with Ross.
Jen, your take on fit at the Carey School of Business?
Sure. Thanks, John and Matt, for having us today. I will echo a lot of the same in terms of we're looking for folks who align with our mission of business with humanity in mind. At Carey and at Johns Hopkins in general, being America's first research institution, we are really looking to better the world. So we define fit less as a personality match and more of a shared belief that business can and should be a force for good, especially in some of the most complex sectors, healthcare, technology, sustainability. Um, and so we're looking for the applicants can, connect their professional goals to the impact, how they want to lead with purpose, how they're going to bring empathy into innovation, and make decisions that create both economic and societal value. And really what we're looking for is that comes through reflection, not rhetoric. So we don't expect the applicants to have all of the answers. We really want them to, demonstrate that they've thought about our mission. We also have a big, you know, importance of experiential learning. So they've thought about that experiential learning approach and the focus on the business of health in particular, and how that all can just help them lead change responsibly.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Patrick?
Yes. So I was thinking before becoming the head of the MBA admissions, I used to be head of the IESE MBA Career Service, the Career Development Center.
Oh,
And I remember when admissions told me, no, these classes are really great. Like they're really great students. And I was thinking, yeah, okay, there's two things to great students now, which it comes to the international candidates as well. One part is that they actually fit with the yes, they fit with the culture we have and our values. But I think the other part is that we actually are fit for them, what they're looking for. So I think fit is really a two-layered thing that has to be reciprocal, that they have to be a fit for us, for our values. And I think the main value in terms of spirit of service that we do, and as all our classes is case-based, where we need class participation, so it's attendance is mandatory, and it's all built on sharing experience, so the better the class is, the better your experience will be. So if we see people that are free riders and just want to learn by themselves, that might not be the fit for our school, where it really is about class participating, sharing, and being of service, not only to your peers, but later to society. And in terms of fit for them, not for the candidate. So depending on what the candidate want, in terms of, it's true, we're European business schools, so depending on what the candidate wants in terms of geography, sector, function, I think there are schools that are better fit than others. And one thing that we are proud of is the diversity, of international students. So if you're looking for international experience, we have more than 55 nationalities. So then if you see that that's something that could add to you what you're looking for, then it is a fit. So, but if something else, then we might not be. So I think there are two sides of the coin in terms of fit.
plus Barcelona is a beautiful place to study.
It is. I came for a project of 2 weeks from Sweden, and now it's been 25 years.
Whoa. Okay.
That's
There's
something.
there's the proof in the pudding.
Exactly.
So Emily at Scheller, how do you define fit and how can one prove it?
I think similar to what you were saying in the beginning, I think I don't love the word fit because I think
Yeah.
it can be like so subjective. But I think the way to think about it and the way that my colleagues have described it is to think about your values and what you value, what things are non-negotiable to you, and then aligning it with the school's values and what the school provides. So I think it's as throughout the MBA admission process, it's a lot of self-reflection. And part of the self-reflection is what do you value in a school, in a community, in the curriculum, in the career outcomes, and figuring that out and then finding schools that align with your values. So I think, for example, like at Georgia Tech, we're a very collaborative, supportive community, and that's super important to us. There are other schools out there who they really love the competitive atmosphere, and that's a better fit for some people. Don't come to Scheller if you want a really competitive atmosphere. We're very supportive. So I think just finding your values and where they fit. So that would be my kind of overall, I think, wrapping up what everyone said, it comes down to that.
Now, Emily, let me ask you the second question, which is, well, what part of the application do you think is undervalued by applicants?
Yeah.
Of course, every application is different, and the admissions criteria, while there are a lot of similarities across the schools, there are some differentiating characteristics. But I wonder if there's a part of your application that you think tends to be undervalued by the people who apply.
Yeah, and I think this is maybe applicable to most programs, but I think that admissions interviews are undervalued, not in the way that maybe applicants think. Of course, it's an evaluative piece of the application process, but I think where applicants undervalue it is utilizing it as a tool for due diligence for themselves. Part of the admissions interview, you get the opportunity to speak with someone in the community and ask questions. Again, making sure that kind of that fit, your values make sense, it's a place you want to be. And so I think utilizing the admissions interview for your own due diligence and looking at it as a two-way street. It's not just schools evaluating you. It is also an opportunity for you to evaluate the school.
Yeah, that's very true. I think the other thing that people should recognize, and this may not be true across all the schools, but I think generally this is the trend, that interviews have become a much more important part of the application process, in part because of ChatGPT and essay writing, in part because of admission consultants, in part because just seeing how someone reacts to questions, whether on video or in person, can be quite revealing. Lisa, what do you think is undervalued in your application?
I don't know if it's undervalued, but one of the underutilized portion of the application is the optional essay. And we get questions all the time, right? Because students always have concerns, right? I have a lower GPA in my undergrad, or I have a small little half-year break in my work experience. What if I'm not using my current supervisor as my letter of recommender, and so on and so forth? And so we always have to go back to them and tell them, hey, this is why we have the optional essay. This is where you can really take the time to share any concerns you have, address any red flags or gaps that you think might be helpful for us to know. And it takes it takes the workload off us to assume, right? Because I always say, if you let me assume, I'm going to assume the worst. And so always provide that context. And so I think not undervalued, but definitely take advantage of that space. And I think most of the schools out there have an optional essay as part of their application. So I would say to just, definitely take advantage of that.
What's a good explanation, Lisa, for someone who applies with a GPA during undergraduate years? It's lower than the median or the average for the class profile. Is it I
Yeah.
was sick? Is it
Yeah.
because I had to work and contribute? Was it because in the beginning, I didn't take school as seriously as I needed to? What's a good excuse?
All of them, John, because they're all different. I've heard each and every one of them. And to
I'm
be
sure.
honest, we're young, right? When we're doing undergrad, you're what, like
Totally.
17, 18, 19. So, I mean, if you just had, a bad start to your, higher education, it's fine. Just be honest, be authentic. But yeah, I've heard just about everything you listed. And rather than like making an excuse, be authentic, be genuine, actually share what happened, right? And so, we'll take your word for it, but I think there's no like perfect thought out excuse, and I wouldn't really call it an excuse, but just providing context, which is also a self-reflection process, right? So
Very
um,
true.
yeah.
Be upfront, be honest,
Yes.
use every part of the application you can. Patrick, at your school, I know that there used to be, and I'm assuming there still is, a full evaluation day for people who are invited to campus. I'm imagining that that becomes really important to gain an admission. Am I right?
True, you're right. So apart from the process interview, which is a one-on-one interview with an alumni from the school, either working or not working at the school, we have the assessment day. So where we invite students, we invite them to Barcelona in each round. We have New York and we have in Sao Paulo. In 2 weeks, I'm going to Sao Paulo to participate, where we evaluate the candidates working in a group. No, that's because in the end, in the MBA, as I said, it's about sharing, it's about learning from each other. So at that assessment center, we want to see how they work and collaborate with each other. No? Because it's true, it's very different. Most interviews are on Zoom, no? And then in person, all together, a whole day. In both the formal, like let's say it's a case that they have to solve together, but also in the informal, during the lunch, during the dinners with alumni, where they get to integrate. And especially if they come to Barcelona, as you say, I mean, it's impossible not to come back once you've come here. So
True.
yeah.
Jen?
So I echo everything that's been said so far. And I think the one common thread that we really highlight for our candidates is this idea of storytelling. And we should see that woven throughout the entire application. And that's sometimes where we see candidates get lost because they have a very distinct resume, they have essays, they have this letter of recommendation, they come for an interview, but it just doesn't seem to all flow or match. And that's really important to us to see the clarity of purpose and their communication style. Really essential for success in Carey's experiential learning environment. So I really encourage candidates, first of all, when writing your resume, make sure you're writing a resume for a business school, not for a job application. But then how can you ensure that your entire application is telling this story about who you are, what you've been doing, And this turning point of why business school now, why a full-time MBA, if that's the program you're looking for, why that particular school that you're applying to. And we know that part of this, idea of storytelling is, what makes up an MBA program. Our career development team does a ton of work on, stories are sticky and how to, better flesh that out. So we're not expecting students to come, with this perfect story ready to go. But however they can ensure that that is woven throughout the pieces of their application, something like the letter of recommendation, for instance, feels so out of an applicant's control sometimes, but there are so many ways that they can really prepare their letter writer to make sure that it's consistent with the rest of the story that they're trying to tell. So that's a big piece of advice I would give.
So Matt, that's a perfect segue to your question. Next.
Well, you know me, John, I'm going to go off script. I apologize to the panelists before I go there, but I want to stay with this idea of things that might be undervalued and flip it and talk about what we might value. And to all four of you, John knows that I consider applying to business school as a gift, this rare opportunity for any young professional, perhaps to step back. They've studied really hard, the early stages of their career, and now each of you is inviting them to step back and really think thoughtfully and deeply about who they are, what they want. Patrick, perhaps starting with you, if we go back 25 years, you had this 2-week trip planned to Spain, which then turned into something else. So if you were going to give yourself any advice on how to use applying to business school for a sense of structure and to really think deeply about who you want to be and what you want from life, what would that advice be?
Great question. I think I could summarize in what they told me in my onboarding when I started. They said, ideally for a candidate, when they apply, apart from them knowing the school very well, the people from the admission team should know the candidate equally well. No, and for this to happen, it's all about what was said earlier, to interact with admissions team, with students, with alumni, really give them the opportunity to know, in my case, know what I want, no, what's important for me, what's my value, what's my career aspirations, and to have this conversation, and not to pretend to be someone else or pretend to be perfect, like really show my real me. No, I think that would make the fit, because we are there also to help the students to make the right decision, no, to go where they should be. So I would give myself or any candidate this advice to be yourself, but really have a conversation. Like, be honest. This is what I want. This is who I am. This is what I've done. And to have this conversation, to be candid, because we're there to help. No, we're there to help.
You're 4 world-class business schools, and perhaps that can be intimidating, as we think about the talented high achievers coming into the programs. Emily, when you read applications, can you tell if an applicant has enjoyed applying to the business school? Is that something that shines through?
It definitely shines through. I kind of echoing what Patrick was saying is, and diving a little deeper, is so much of applying to business school is this kind of rare time in your adult life where you get to do self-reflection and really step back, take a break, think about what you want, what your goals are, your short-term goals, your medium, long-term goals. And I don't know that a lot of us take that time and it as a special time when you're applying to an MBA program. So I think you can absolutely tell when someone has done that kind of self-reflection. And along with that goes research of, do my career goals make sense? Have I researched what other people are doing and how they got to this role? So I think that self-reflection plus research piece is so important. And part of the research piece too is when you're looking at schools, students you can absolutely tell, have they kind of figured out what your curriculum's about, what they're interested in? Have they reached out to your alumni? It's so easy these days with like LinkedIn, or almost all schools probably on their website have an MBA ambassador, connect with a current student, connect with an alumni. We make it so easy to do the research. And I think it absolutely enhances an application when you spend the time to do that.
Right. But Jen, if you get a WhatsApp text from a niece or a nephew who says, Auntie Jen, I'm applying to business school, but, look at what you do. I'd love your advice and help. Before we think about standardized tests and any of that, if you were then to talk with them and say, Maybe think about these two or three things as you take this next step. What would that advice be?
I think the why, um, making sure that they've really thought through the why and the timing as well. Because those two pieces really need to fit because it is a unique opportunity. I know, John, you said earlier it was something that you missed out on. I feel like it's something that I missed out on as well. If I could turn back time, I would definitely have taken better advantage of some of these opportunities. But it really does have to be, that special time in terms of where they're at in their career, what they've learned so far, what they'll be able to bring to the classroom is so important. Um, so having really thought those pieces out is where I would start with a candidate to think about, is this the time? Are you going to be able to really engage in what the classes have to offer? Are you going to be able to take advantage of everything and contribute? And if the answers there are yes, then let's move forward.
Right. And with the authenticity, Lisa, that you're looking for, and context, really getting to know that candidate before they type things into GPT or Claude. If it was a pen and a pencil, a pen and a notepad, just to say, maybe think about these two or three things. Again, where would you encourage applicants to start that journey of self-reflection and introspection?
I think it's very similar to what Jen said to her niece is that why, right? Sit down, think about why it is that you need an MBA. There are plenty of other ways to, get into other, industries and stuff, but why is it that in essentially an MBA specifically is going to help you? And then two, looking to see, doing your research into exactly what it is you can gain out of the 2 years of the time. As adults, it's very rare for us to have the time to be able to pause your life for 2 years, right? And really focus on improving yourself and making connections. And so this is a really, I think, special time for most of our students. And so thinking again about timing, is this the right time? Am I at a space in my career where I feel like it's now or never? Is it too early for me? Is it too late? I mean, we don't typically say it's too late, but there's definitely, times where you're like, okay, well, is this really the right program or is another program a better fit? And then you said one more is again, just thinking about, I would say realistically what you would need to do to make this happen, right? Some of our applicants have families. They have, they might have to relocate either across the country or across the world. Are their families on board? Do they need to, talk through any of those like realistic financial concerns with their partners, whatever. So I think that's definitely something that applicants need to think about early on before they apply to see if realistically they have a plan going forward with actually funding the MBA.
Right. So we've sort of centered ourselves and found our own voice. Now, of course, Emily, there are other voices involved in the application, recommenders. Just talk about the role that they're playing and the value of the insights that they'll be sharing about a candidate, how that helps admissions at Georgia Tech.
Yep, and I think for most full-time programs, we are looking to see someone who has supervised or managed you, who can speak about your work and speak about how you've grown and improved and how you take feedback, and all of those things are really important. I think another piece about letters of recommendation that maybe applicants don't consider is how much control they have over it. And that one thing we're looking for is it clear that the applicant prepped the recommenders, right? That's part of your application preparation process is, did you have a conversation with your recommender? Did you reshare your resume with them? Did you talk to them about your goals of doing this? And I think that when you, as an applicant, take the time to prepare, it really enhances the recommendation aspect of your application. So I think don't look at the recommendation section as something totally out of your control. It isn't. I think you can really spend the time to prepare your recommenders and really help them understand the story that you'd like them to get across.
Right. Jen, you were talking earlier about empathy and authenticity, the being you. We then extend that to recommenders and how you can best work with them. What are you looking for? And perhaps this same obvious question that's been asked of candidates and their use of AI tools, could you tell if a recommender has relied on a large language model to share that recommendation?
It's pretty easy to tell when you have a very generic kind of boilerplate letter recommendation versus something that's really from the heart, that shows that the candidate has the self-awareness in who they have chosen for their letter writer, and that they've had those quality conversations about the next steps, the why the MBA, the why this particular school, what they hope to get from it. So we're really looking in those letters for examples of how a candidate leads with competence and compassion. So we're looking, the language, we can tell, we can sift through the AI. We're looking for a language of collaboration, how someone is supportive of others, how they manage the conflict, empathy, you said, how they can demonstrate empathy in decision making. This is going to be the type of thing that we look for, as well as stories of growth. Moments when a candidate took feedback and translated it into action. We want those students who are coachable and they're reflective. So those are the traits that we're looking for. And it's very clear from a letter writer when that truly comes forward.
Right. I guess Patrick is a very values-driven institution at IESE and responsible leadership, with everything that you can already pick up from a candidate's resume, from their CV, to then have a recommender perhaps dive deeper and share that level of insight. What is it that you and your team are really hoping to uncover in letters of recommendation?
So I was thinking when I heard the other answers that for me, a perfect recommender would be someone that knows the school, that knows the school, what we are looking for, like our values and others. And also, if not possible in school, but an MBA. So what an MBA can actually give you. And when they recommend someone, they have this in mind, no? This is this person who is looking to do this. And I think it could be a good fit for an MBA or for your school by concrete examples. So I think the worst thing is when it's vague, or a general praise that doesn't really tell anything. So be concrete as possible with concrete examples, how it fits with my values or the school that they apply for, and how what they want after the MBA fits with what an MBA or the school can give. So I think the concrete examples from a recommender that I feel like this recommender knows, what we're looking for and what an MBA means, no?
Right. I guess, Lisa, if they're a season ticket holder for U of M football, those are much priced tickets, whether you're a recommender or not. But perhaps from what Patrick said, a level of detail. So it's not this generic sentence statement that could perhaps apply to so many candidates, but really illustrating and providing something granular that you can then lock onto in the admissions office.
Yes, absolutely. So we're looking for specific examples of how they've shown leadership, of how they've been collaborative with their team members, how they've taken feedback, right? And how they've been able to act upon the feedback that they were given to improve themselves. So definitely looking for very specific examples, even better if the examples are things that we don't already know from their essays or their resume. So it's like another perspective, right? Another touch point for us to really get to know this candidate. And then one thing I will say is most of the letter of recommendations that we read are positive, right? It's almost like you're looking for the red flags where the letter of recommendation is not positive and there's concerns there. The really short, like 2-sentence letter of recommendations that we get, obviously the ones that are, rated don't recommend or not enthusiastically recommend, then it's like, oh, what happened here? So I think going back to what Emily said, you can definitely prep and make sure that you're choosing the right person in advance to make sure that your letter of recommendation is actually a solid part of your application. Because what we don't want is for you to have this great application, do really well in the interview, and then the letter of recommendation is awful or like just 2 sentences. So yeah, I kind of went off tangent there, but I just wanted to mention that too.
No, they're great examples. And will you ever follow up with a recommender for additional detail? Perhaps the one that only sent 2 lines.
We don't, because there's just so many applicants. It would be really difficult for us to contact each and every letter of recommender for additional context. We see that as a lack of prep from the applicant themselves, and also just not choosing a good recommender, right? So that's definitely a huge flag for us when it's a poor letter of recommendation. Yeah.
Yeah, Jen, John had spoken earlier about perhaps the growing importance of interviews because it's this tangible opportunity really to meet the candidate face to face or virtually. So the importance to you for high stakes. I mean, candidates are, I've reached this point. This really matters. How do we sort of get them to count three, take a deep breath, and really shine in the interview?
Right. Well, the first thing I always start with when I talk to an interviewed candidate, I say that I want the next hour or however long we spend together to be conversational. It shouldn't feel so robotic. I really want to hear from you about your experiences. It goes back to the idea of storytelling, but that's really an opportunity to hear and understand how that person thinks. The rest of the application shows a whole body of work of what they've done, what they've accomplished, the roles they've had, the academics. Now we want to see how they approach problems, how they listen, and how they connect ideas to purpose. So that is really important, particularly in our interview format, just because we are so driven by experiential learning. We need to be able to see that they have a willingness to get uncomfortable and to test solutions in real world settings and learn from ambiguity. So those are some of the biggest things that we're looking for within that conversation.
Right. As one of Europe's top business schools, Patrick, you're bringing together 60, 70 nationalities into the 2-year program at IESE. Is the interview also an opportunity to get that sense of cultural awareness and how they're going to then thrive in such a multicultural environment?
I would say that the assessment day is exactly that, where you meet different, like all kinds of people from all kinds of places. But the interview, we try to match them with someone with similar background or similar career, what they aspire. So we match all our candidates that are selected for the interview with an alumni, an MBA alumni. And I think that also helps this conversation because we tell them, this is it. I'm going to share my experience during the MBA, what I got out of it. And then I'm going to kind of assess if this person in front of me, I would have this person as my teammate at the MBA, and I would see them as a future alumni. So kind of like the elevator test, no? Or the airport test. So I said the interview, we try to match them with people that can share their experience that are similar to the candidate, not the diversity. That's what we have the assessment day for, to show the.
Right. Now we're moving,
diversity.
Emily, into interview season. Should a candidate feel, well, that they already know a lot about me, they've had the application, they got my resume. Is that something that you'll have at the interview and therefore perhaps going deeper into some of those areas that have been shared in the application, but equally using this as an opportunity to bring other things to the admissions attention?
I think for sure. I think in our interviews, and I know it's different at different schools, the interviewer, and we have our career services team interviewing, we have our student advising team interviewing, we have our admissions and recruiting team. So I'm not, you will never know until you schedule your interview who you're with, but everyone does have your resume in front of you. They haven't seen your application. So I always say candidates shouldn't feel like they're repeating themselves. I think what we really use the interview for, and you alluded to it earlier, but we were using it for things we cannot assess from your written application. So this is things that we really value, like emotional intelligence, interpersonal skills. I think some people on the call have talked about how important like teamwork, being able to work on a team with people who are bringing all different diverse perspectives to the team is so important. And so I think it's really the kind of EQ, the emotional intelligence, the interpersonal skills. That's something we're really looking for in the interview that we can't get on paper, right? And then I think the other piece that maybe candidates don't think about so much is also, if you are admitted and enroll in our program, you will be a representative of our program. So you will be a representative of Georgia Tech Scheller College of Business when you go out to interview for your interview or for your summer internship or for your full-time job. And so we also want to make sure that you can represent our school well in your future places of employment. So I think those are two pieces we assess that just can't come through on a written application.
Yeah, Patrick?
Yes, maybe because of my former CDC hat, no, in terms of careers, I've seen literally thousands of MBA students and asking, why are you doing the MBA and what do you want? I think in our interviews, exactly as what Emily said, I do most of the time do like a normal interview question, like if it was a job interview, to see how they would perform, because they represent the school, but also they're going to sell themselves, like behavioral question. Tell me about the time where you showed leadership, and really as it was a job interview, and some candidates kind of get surprised, but I think they shouldn't. No, so that may be one tip to think about, to actually practice before you go into a process interview. You practice to tell me about yourself. Tell me about you showed leadership or teamwork, or I think to actually practice, because it's important.
Right. And imagining, Lisa, an interview as a dialogue. You mentioned earlier action learning, the MAP program that Ross is justifiably world famous for. The extent to which this is an opportunity for the applicant to learn more about the school. There will be basics on the website. We don't need to ask about average GMAT focus scores, but do you really encourage that two-way discussion between the interviewer and the interviewee?
Absolutely, because similar to some of the other schools, we have our alumni and current students conduct the interviews. And so it is really important that you're coming up with thoughtful questions to ask them, either about their experience, about certain initiatives. I mean, obviously not the basic questions like, what is MAP? Can you tell me more? But more so like, maybe how did you benefit from MAP? What was your project? So deeper questions to show that you genuinely have an interest in a program. That's actually a part of the assessment for our interview, is whether this candidate seems genuinely interested in Michigan Ross. And so you can count on our alumni and students to really be jotting down what type of questions you ask. And then again, just showing interest even for your interviewer, right? It's a sign of just respect and thoughtfulness that you put a lot of, time into preparing for this interview, because you get to know who your interviewer is in advance. And so even just asking some like industry related questions for this interviewer will really, I guess now everyone knows, but it could be a thing that makes you stand out. Yeah.
Right. John, you're known for your inquiring mind, and at Poets, of course, you inquire about trends that affect admissions from one year to the next. Perhaps you have questions about what the schools are seeing.
True. I want to make one observation, though, about demystifying the MBA admissions process. I've had the privilege of actually being a fly on the wall at admission committee meetings at least 3, maybe 4 schools over the years. And one conclusion that I get from listening into those admission decisions out of those committees is that individual interactions with admission officials can play a really important part in an acceptance or a rejection. I've heard countless numbers of people around these tables say, oh, I met this person at this chat or this coffee or whatever, and I remembered them, and here's why. And it seemed to make a difference. And I wondered, what are the social dynamics of an admissions committee meeting, and what may go on in that meeting that may be important for an applicant to know? Lisa?
Great question. So it really is an art and a science, right? Building a class. There's no special formula. A lot of times applicants are like, well, I have this GPA, I have this GMAT. What are my chances of getting in? And it's like, it's really a holistic process. And yes, our interactions with the candidates definitely come into play. If we remember you, it's for 2 reasons, right? 1, you were great and you were amazing to interact with. And 2, you were a pain in our butts. And so,
That is
maybe
so true.
and so maybe that is shared across the committee members, then that is an even bigger problem for you, right? And so definitely being conscious about the way you interact with every member of our community, not just the admissions committee, but our alumni, our faculty, our, operations team, our career develop, like anyone that's a part of the Ross and U of M community, because we'll probably get that feedback one way or another, whether it's good or bad. And so that definitely does come into play. And again, it is a holistic review process, especially at Ross. And so even if you do have like a slightly lower GPA, but then, you have great work experience, your why MBA, why Ross, everything makes sense and you did really well, there's really no reason why we wouldn't admit you. So rather than focusing so much on like one area of your application, really do your best to compile the most holistically strong application that you can.
Yeah, true. I mean, I would say that the most successful candidates have an advocate on the admissions committee as a result of some sort of connection, meaning I met them at a coffee chat and I made a good impression. And every connection you make with the school, I'm just going to tell you, applicants out there, understand that it's an evaluation. Something is going on here that can either help you or hurt you. So be on your best behavior. For sure, do not mistreat anyone, even the receptionist, because that can come back in an admissions committee to haunt you. Let me go on to the question I was going to ask, which is, are you seeing trends in who's applying or not applying? And how is your school responding to that? Let's go to Jen at the Carey School of Business at Johns Hopkins University first for that.
Sure. Well, I think in general, we do see more candidates coming to us being drawn to the business of health, and really just looking to take opportunity to engage with the entire Johns Hopkins ecosystem. Um, so it's candidates who are maybe really focused on one particular avenue of healthcare, but they're thinking about how they can further lead organizations, and how they can be interacting with the rest of that Hopkins ecosystem to make that impact happen. So going back to kind of the first question about fit, we see these students who are prioritizing human outcomes, as kind of the basis for why they're wanting to pursue an MBA. And then for why Carey in particular, we are definitely seeing that trend grow over time of that intersection of business and health and the advantage of the overall Johns Hopkins ecosystem.
Emily, what trends are you seeing and who's applying at Schiller?
Sure. I have kind of two answers to this, John. One is, I think, something that maybe people don't expect as much as we see it. We have a really strong veterans showing at Scheller, and I think that comes down to we have really strong veterans club and alumni community. And so that is definitely a trend we've been seeing rise at Scheller. I want to talk about a kind of a general trend that I've seen across programs. I think everyone on this call, we're all in the admissions recruitment space, and we attend events like this and speak with prospects, and we go to fairs. And a trend I see is a lot of women who are thinking about an MBA, but feeling like their application isn't going to be perfect this year. I need to wait. I need to get everything perfect and in order. And our advice is always just apply. Like if you are at this point and you're talking to admissions folks, just apply. Things don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have the perfect GMAT focus score. So I think that is a trend I see of women just feeling like they're not quite ready. And my advice is, if you are at the point where you're talking to people, you are definitely ready, and please just apply.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I know that there's research that has shown that sometimes women in a classroom are a little reluctant to raise their hand and contribute, in part, frankly, because they want their answer to be more thoughtful than a guy who's raising his hand just to get airtime. And some schools have actually counseled incoming female candidates not to wait. You don't have to have the perfect comment. You don't have to always add significant value to a discussion. Say what's on your mind. Be participative. Okay, In Barcelona there, Patrick, what's your take on what trends you're seeing in admissions?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on what Jesper said. I think that's very true because I don't know if I read it, someone told me, no, when a woman apply to a job posting, they have to, if it's like 20 requirements, they have to fulfill the 20. And a guy with two is fine,
Yeah, right.
this is for me. So if you have this, let us be the judge. Please do apply, and we have this conversation. Uh, but I think we see a trend in having more entrepreneurs applying to our MBA. I guess it's a response also because what we can offer also for entrepreneurs in our Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center, and having more and more classes even in the first year about entrepreneurship and giving entrepreneurs. Because when I started many years ago, in careers entrepreneurs, they said, so we were consulting, they were finance, and they said, no, so what's in it for me? So what do you support? What support do you have? And I think that was like 15 years ago. Now there's tons of support. And I think that shows we have more and more entrepreneurs with their startup or with their business idea that come to do an MBA, which I think is good. So it's not only for consultants and investment bankers, but also for an MBA adds value to entrepreneurs. And
Indeed.
that's a trend.
Lisa, Michigan Ross, what are the admission trends you're seeing? Who's applying, who's not applying, and how's the school responding?
Yeah, very similar to Patrick. Actually, I would say we have a lot more entrepreneurs applying and a lot more people interested in going to entrepreneurship. And then in terms of just overall trends, we're still getting your typical consulting, tech, and finance career interests. And those happen to be our top three where our students do end up post MBA. So it kind of fits into our profile, I would say, our class profile. So nothing too shocking there, pretty steady. But yeah, I think entrepreneurship is definitely up and coming. We have a great Zell Lurie Center for Entrepreneurship here at Ross, in addition to a Center for Entrepreneurship within the University of Michigan. And there's a lot of resources. I think ETA, Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition, is something that's really popular these days with our MBAs, and our ZLI, our Zell Lurie for Entrepreneurship Center, actually has really good programmings and tracks dedicated to help students with ETA and then also the traditional like startup route. So yeah, that's basically what we're seeing.
Lisa, last week I had dinner with your dean at a conference at Rutgers Business School, and one of the things we talked about is the impact of public policy on international applicants. And in our previous center court session, it was made clear by every panelist how welcoming the U.S. is to internationals. I wonder if you're fielding any challenging questions from international applicants these days.
Absolutely. I mean, it's always top of their mind, right? Safety, because a lot of other countries outside the US don't have gun violence concerns. And so that's always been an issue with international students, is wondering how safe, the city that they're planning to go to would be for them. Are there any type of racism, discrimination? Are the faculty welcome? Are the student population welcome? So definitely a lot more of these type of questions, even when I'm traveling on the road and engaging with international students. And then also just the uncertainty with the job market and the H-1B visa. And I think the only thing that we can continue to do is tell them that we welcome them, we support them, and we're dedicated to, providing them with the most inclusive experience as possible. But at the same time, we also have to follow certain, federal guidelines that, all of us have to abide to. And so, for everyone that's applying now, 2 years down the road, we don't know what it'll look like, right? So it's not necessarily a long-term concern, but I also can't give you 100% definitive, like, yeah, the job market will be great by the time you graduate and there would be no problems finding a sponsored company. But at least you won't be going through what our current students have to deal with at this moment as they're recruiting. Yeah.
That's true, because people who apply now won't matriculate for another year or more and won't graduate for another 2 years, and the world can be completely different than it is today, and most likely will be in the United States at least.
Life is messy and it's rarely linear. Is there a perfect time to go to business school? Maybe sometimes are better than others. So just looking for a final soundbite from each of you, with the individual that we've put at the heart of this admissions process, for each of you, why do you think the MBA is still such a compelling opportunity for the personal and professional journeys that people are going to go through? Emily, I see you nodding. What's the yes?
One thing I really appreciate about the MBA is that it is a general graduate degree, and it is so applicable to so many different industries and so many different functional areas. I think it teaches you how to think critically, how to communicate well. These are all skills that aren't going to go away, right? These are all skills that are valued. And I think the fact that is applicable to so many different industries is only a benefit, especially as the world is changing so quickly.
Right. And that changing context, Patrick, the enduring value?
I am an IESE MBA alumni myself, so I know what it does to you. And it is I would say probably any MBA, especially 2-year MBA, is a personal transformation. You are not the same when you start and when you finish because of what you go through. Because maybe you were the best locally, but then all of a sudden you're together with everybody who is the best, and it's a humbling experience. And you learn from so many people, and you get so many friends. And I remember you don't even know what you know when you finish. It's so overwhelming. But then when you start interacting, you see, wow, it actually, yeah, it's a life-changing experience. I mean, yeah.
And with the outside world, Lisa, that is filled with those uncertainties and policies that will come and they will go. But when it's just about you as an individual, is that what really counts?
Is what really counts.
Just the investment that you're making in yourself, that's going to be the enduring value.
Yes, I think really taking 2 years off to invest in, and so I would say like the MBA really is the best way for people to transition their careers and really change their lives. As a non-traditional MBA myself, I mean, I don't think there was any, like I couldn't have even imagined that I would be pivoting into, higher ed and then business before I got my MBA. So I do think a lot of our students who come here, they are looking for that life-changing experience, right? A lot of first-gen students are looking to create generational wealth for their families or offsprings and like grandchildren and stuff. And so it is what I see as one of the most transformative programs out there, because there's really no prerequisite for you to get your MBA. We have students that come from all walks of life. You can be an elementary school teacher, you can work for an NGO, you can be a dancer for all we care, as long as, you fit into what we're looking for, you've done your research, you've thought out your reasons for why MBA, you can completely transform and go and work in New York, right? And work that really busy consulting life that maybe that's what you're hoping to do. But so yeah, I think it really is valuable. It's a great investment, whether just for personal growth or for professional growth, and definitely a huge value for anyone just hoping to change up their career.
And I guess, Jen, with your team, you meet these candidates on paper, and then a couple of years later, you see them graduate. That transformation that Lisa was describing, that must be incredibly rewarding to see.
That's my favorite part of the job, is seeing that whole life cycle and remembering that moment that you met them, at a fair, and then seeing them walk across the stage at graduation. And then a few years later when they're, helping you as an alumni panelist for an event. So often what they initially may have set out to do when you talk with them at that table is not where they have wound up. And that's okay, because so much of the MBA is not just about what to think, but it's about how to think, and seeing that evolve over time and taking those lessons and applying it to really any industry, any field, anything that they may have wound up engaging in. That is what really makes it special. And I think that's what makes it the enduring value.
Let me just say, too, that the most generous gift you can give yourself is a gift of a friend. And the second most generous gift you can give yourself is the gift of education. An MBA gives you both. It gives you enduring friendships the people who you want around your dinner table, the people who you want to have a drink with at a bar or go to a karaoke club and sing all night long. It's fun. Besides the work, besides the preparation, besides the skills, besides the network, it's just a lot of fun, and it's going to give you those two gifts, friendship and skills and knowledge that will serve you over a lifetime.
Well, all four of you, I'll be sending you that karaoke invitation for the very near future. You've got a budding Sinatra on the call. But for all four of you, I think to be able, you covered so much insight, encouragement, words of guidance as candidates are taking their next steps. But along with all of that, there's just this extraordinary energy, that sense of belief that you have in the candidates, and of course that you have in the extraordinary programs that you offer for the fun and the friendships and everything else that would follow. So Emily and Jen, Patrick, Lisa, thank you for joining us at Centre Court. It was a great session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
all.
all.